Hello, everybody. I'm going to start a little early this evening. Um, we're glad to have you here at the Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot. And the Mrs. Bear is here with me, but she's a little tired this evening. We've had a eventful day today. We spent time with our grandchildren, some of our grandchildren, done Christmas early with them. It's been a long day for her. She's been cooking like always. Um, So I decided I'd go ahead and get this started and let you all know that we're going to do an account of Bigfoot tonight. And it happened last Christmas. And um, this one is a year old. It happened last Christmas. And the thing that happened last Christmas is as follows. Last Christmas, this family down in Tennessee, down in the southern, below Knoxville, down between Knoxville and Georgia state line, they have Christmas on their, uh, this young, um, there's a mom and dad, a son and a daughter. Now, the son and daughter have grown up, and once they grew up, their grandparents passed away, and they always had Christmas at the grandparents' house in the mountains. And it was a family tradition. So once the grandparents had passed away, um, the mom and dad decided that they were going to keep the tradition going on. And in order to do that, they had to have it there at the grandparents' home. So last year, Christmas was on Sunday, which um, Christmas will be tomorrow, Monday. So it's been a year. And what happened was the mom and dad went up on the Sunday before Christmas, which would have been the 18th. Now, their goal and what they wanted to do was go in and open the house up, air it all out, get it all cleaned up, get it back to where the father's parents had the house. And they wanted to do this because it was their family tradition. And the kids had, even though their grandparents had passed, they knew that the grandparents told them that whatever happens, always come here for Christmas. So they did that. Mom and dad went up on Sunday. Didn't have any issues. They got there fairly early in the afternoon, about 1 o'clock or so, and started opening up the house and getting all the sheets pulled off of things, trying to get the house started cleaning up and getting it all taken care of. And in the process of doing this, they started getting a little nostalgic about, the father's parents, the many Christmases they had had there together with their whole family when the kids were little, and now they're all grown, and they even had a couple of Christmases there with the grandparents when the grandbabies, their grandbabies, were newborn babies. So they decided that they were going to finish up the next day. So they went to bed. They went and they fixed something to eat and decided they were going to go to bed. So around 3 o'clock in the morning, which would have been Monday morning. The mom got up. Uh, she woke up and had to go to the little girl's room. And when she got out of bed, she heard tink. She's like, what in the world would that be? Huh. She heard again, another tink on the window. So she looks out the window, kind of glances out the window, actually. She didn't stand there and stare out the window. She kind of looked over to the window. She thought she saw someone standing there in the yard or a bear or something standing in your yard. And she woke her husband up. And whenever she woke him up, he heard the sound on the window, tink. So he got out of bed and walked over to the window and didn't see anything. And he decided that, she probably saw a bear standing there clawing a tree or something of that nature. She said it looked human, but it was standing, whatever it was standing on 2 feet. And he said, well, there's bears in this part of the area. Mom and dad's always told me about them and everything. And uh, it's no big deal, honey. Go ahead and go to the bathroom and come on back to bed. So nothing else pretty much went on. She went to the restroom and came back to bed. Next morning, they get up and they're a little apprehensive, and him and her go out in the backyard. Now upstairs, there's 6 bedrooms in this house, and they're staying in his parents' bedroom, the master bedroom. Has its own bathroom, and the other ones share 2 bathrooms down the hall. So they get dressed, they pull all the sheets off the bed, off from the rest of the furniture, and they get the house all straightened up. And he goes out and he gets out his dad's uh, riding mower, and he cuts all the grass around the house, and he does all the stuff outside, and they decorate the front of the house, for the kids, and they're hoping that come Christmas in another 6 days that they will have some snow. And the weather's not predicting very much of a chance for snow the coming weekend. 20% chance. It's not, everybody likes a white Christmas. Everybody that's had a white Christmas likes a white Christmas. Now, I know and understand that the people in the South don't have white Christmases very often. And I understand people out in the West, and like California and Arizona and New Mexico, there's not a lot of white Christmases that happen. It takes a very different type of weather system to get snow in most parts of those states. And I understand this. But this family's hoping that they will get one. So while they are taking care of all the things around the house that needs to be done, uh, nothing happens all day Monday. Well, they get done around dark and they go ahead and eat something, mom fixes dinner, and they kind of sit back and watch some TV. They have a satellite dish at the house, and they can watch TV there at the house. They've kept all the bills up and taken care of everything that needs to be taken care of. So Monday night rolls around, and they go to bed, and it ain't too long after they go to bed, they hear tink, tink, tink on the window. Well, the dad gets up. He has to go to the men's room anyway. It happens. So while when he walks across the room, there's a window And then the bathroom door is right here. When you open the bathroom door and turn the light on, it blocks out most of that window. Well, he looks out and he's standing there and he goes, honey, honey. And she's like, what are you wanting? Go to the bathroom. I know why you got up. Just leave me alone. Let me sleep. I'm tired, hon. No, honey, you need to get up. You need to look out the window now. So she gets up out of bed and is going, what am I looking for? I don't see anything. He said, give it a second or two. And she sees movement under the big oak tree right behind the house that's standing out in the yard by itself. There's no other trees out there, and it's bare. And she sees movement that leans out like this. And it leans behind a tree. Then it leans out again. And it's looking up. And she's looking at it going, that's what I saw last night. That's it. And it turns and kind of walks off. And when it walks off, much like it is now, the moon's kind of lit the sky up because it's a clear, cold night for Tennessee. It's pretty cool. And this creature has breasts. My wife's looking at me funny. And it's got breast. And it just walks out from behind a tree, stops and looks at him, and then just walks across the yard. Sorry, that was my wife dropping her glasses for the 30th time today. First time. And at this point, they're like, what in the world is that? They don't understand what it is. They can tell it's covered in hair, but they could clearly see breasts on this creature. So, at this point, they kind of look at each other, and the husband just kind of just turns and goes to the restroom, comes back out, and they kind of talk a little bit about it, and then they kind of fall back to sleep, and they make the thing that they're going to go in town the next day, which would be Tuesday, and talk to the local um, sheriff or police chief in the town. Find out if he knows anything, or if they can, send a car up there and look around or whatever. So they go to town the next morning after getting up fairly early, about 7 o'clock. They eat a quick breakfast and they hop in the car and head to town. He needs something anyway because he's found a leak in one of the bathrooms and he wants to fix it. So they go to the local hardware store and he gets the pieces that he needs to fix the little leak. Uh, and at that point, they drive over to the local police station, go in, and they want to talk to the man in charge. Now, the man in charge is somebody that the dad knows because he was raised there in that town. And they go in and he sits down and he's like, what do you know about we've had someone in our yard last night up there at mom and dad's house, and we're going to have Christmas there. And they're talking about it. And finally, the chief says, well, your parents knew about this. All they ever did was go out and tell them that family's coming and that once they're there, they need to stay hidden. Don't be seen because it will show, it'll alarm their family and they don't want that problem. And so at this point, they're kind of like, okay. And the chief says, if you're afraid of this, here, I've got an extra shotgun here in the office. Take it home with you. Here's some shells for it. If they give you any trouble, just walk out, shoot a shot in the air, and yell at them and tell them not to come back. That your family is coming and you need to stop and never be around. So that night, they go in. Uh, he finished the bathroom and got done with it, got it all fixed, and everything is good. Got new sheets on all the beds for their children, grown children, and their husband or wife, and their grandbabies. Now they got 4 grandchildren, 1 boy, 3 girls. It's kind of the opposite of us. We got 1 girl and 4 boys. Wouldn't trade one of them for nothing. Just a grandpa telling you, you don't trade. You do what you have to do to take care of your grandchildren at all times. And so that night, the tinks at the window happen again. And this time, instead of it being tink, tink, it's tink, 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 tink. I mean, it's just one after another. And then finally, it's a bunch of them all at once. Like they took a handful of little pebbles and threw at the window. Well, this wakes both of them up when that happens. And they get up and they look out, and it's not the female. It's another Bigfoot that is standing right in the broad open of their yard. There's lights on the back of the house, and they're seeing a very large male Bigfoot. Now, they have seen 2 different Bigfoot 2 nights in a row. And the mom is not sure that she did not see the female because it was the same size as the one that she saw. So at that point, they're like, I'm going to go do what the chief told us to do. So he goes out with the shotgun, goes out the back door, and this creature had evidently walked off by the time he got downstairs and went out the back door on the back porch. He shot the shotgun in the air like the chief told him and screamed at the top of his lungs. Now, there's no one else that lives there around this house. There's well over 200 acres that this house sits on, and it's pretty much the whole front of the mountain stretching over onto the backside of the mountain about halfway down is their property. So shooting the shotgun didn't alarm anyone. It happens all the time, in a wooded area like that. Tennessee, there's quite a few hunters, and there's quite a few uh, hunters that use dogs to tree raccoons or tree bear or whatever. So nobody really thought anything about it. And besides, the chief told them they could do it and there wouldn't be no repercussions for it. So they did this and thought the situation was done. No, it's not done. Thursday night rolls around and it happens again. They're throwing rocks at the window. He goes out again and shoots another shot in the air and yells at the top of his lungs, "Stop coming around here. My family is coming, and if you're here, I will shoot you." Which is, it's not a good thing to shoot a Bigfoot. Take my word for it. So they go back to town because mom has to go get groceries for the Christmas dinner that she wants to make for her family. Now, she's the type of woman that is like my wife. When she starts cooking, the best thing to do is stay out of the kitchen unless she calls you in there to taste test. Otherwise, men, stay out of their way. So the dad goes to the grocery store with the mom. While she's at the store, he goes over to the police station and talks to the chief again. In talking to him, he finds out the one thing that they did not know. The chief neglected to tell them this. Well, just go and buy you some apples, a couple bushels of apples, and do like your mom and dad did. Stick it out there, and they'll come and pick them up, and they won't be back for another week. So he goes to an apple orchard uh, and tries to buy apples, and they have apples. So he buys them. He pays a premium price for them, too. And he gets back there to the grocery store, and she's just at the checkout line getting done. She spends quite a bit of money for Christmas dinner, just like my wife does. When we got all of our kids here, there's what, 13, 14 people here besides us. We have a large family. Wouldn't trade that for anything. And at that point, they get back there. It's Friday. Mom starts doing some stuff for dinner because the son is supposed to show up, and then the daughter is supposed to show up later. So the son shows up, and then the daughter shows up a little bit later, and the whole family's there. They're having a wonderful time. They're doing everything together, and so it's wonderful family time, and they're enjoying themselves. They're loving watching their grandbabies run around the house and having a ball. And Dad says to his son, he says, "Son," and the son's wife is sitting there, and this is before the sister gets there. He says, "We've had some problems this week," and he said, "We've had some Bigfoot here." And his son starts laughing and he makes a joke of it. And he says, "Dad, it's probably just a bear. It's you're you don't know what you were seeing." Doesn't believe his own father. Well, the dad gets up. He's kind of upset with his boy and says, "Look, when I tell you, me and your mother have seen a couple of Bigfoot here in the yard. We have seen a couple of Bigfoot. You better listen." Well, at that time, the sister comes in the house. Now, one of them lives in Knoxville. The boy lives in Knoxville. The daughter lives in Nashville. Well, outside of Nashville. And at that point, he she walks in and goes, "Hey, little brother," and leans over and gives him a hug, and then gives her mom and dad a hug, and they're all, it's family. And dad's still kind of upset, and he says, "You know what?" He said, "I told you something and you didn't believe me. I didn't like that." And sis looks over and says, "Dad, what'd you tell him?" "That we've had some Bigfoot in the yard." Sister gets right up, walks over and smacks big little brother right in the back of the head, and looks at him and goes, "When Dad tells you they've seen Bigfoot, they've seen Bigfoot. We've seen Bigfoot just outside of our neighborhood there on the other side of Nashville." And he's like, "There is no such thing as a wham." Sister hits him in the head harder, gets his attention, and says, "Dad, said he saw Bigfoot. Mom says she saw Bigfoot. They saw Bigfoot. Shut up. So he kind of looks at his wife and goes, sis, don't do that again. That kind of hurts. So sibling rivalry is just something wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So Saturday rolls around, the grandbabies are out in the backyard. It's a little cold. It's colder than normal. And they're talking about, all the grown-ups are talking about, hopefully we get snow tomorrow. You know, it'd be great to have snow for Christmas. So the grandbabies are outside playing, and mom gets up and goes to the back door to check on the grandbabies. And lo and behold, there's a something with breasts and hair covered standing in just inside the wood line. And mom picks it up right off the bat and screams at the grandbabies, which scares the daylights out of them, and orders them inside the house. Now, these four little grandchildren, ranging from age 10 to 5, come flying in the house because when grandma says something, you do it. And so they go in the house, and when they heard mom scream, the grandpa and both sets of parents go to the back door. And the sister and the dad automatically see what they're talking about. This female is standing there. And the boy walks outside. And when he steps outside, he hears thump, 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 thump coming towards the house. He's like, what in the heck is going on? And then he notices the female Sasquatch standing there looking at him. Then they see the big male, which comes and stands in front of the female to protect her, thinking that they're going to shoot her or do something else to her. Now, after this, the whole family knows that there's Bigfoot. It is a revelation to the son that mom and dad wasn't lying, and he apologizes emphatically to his parents and to his sister. And they go back in. They kind of walk in and shut the door. They keep the grandbabies out of the way, out of the way to see the two Bigfoots standing out there with the big male in front and the female behind. Which, by the way, is like my wife trying to look around the male, which she does me all the time. And at that point, they're like, well, maybe Christmas is going to be ruined. And once they the dad and son got back up, they all went inside and was keeping the grandbabies away from the back door. And the dad and the son went to the back door along with the sister's husband. And they're not there. So at that point, they're like, we're not going to let this ruin Christmas. We're going to keep our tradition going. We've been doing this for however long mom and uh, dad owned this place. It's always been done this way. We're going to do this. We're not going to let these creatures interfere. And they went out the front door and walked down there where dad had stuck the 2 bushel of apples that he had purchased that day. They were still there. Well, Sunday morning rolls around and it's Christmas morning. Everybody knows that when you got little ones running around, that your house is a looks like it's been ransacked by a Bigfoot, and that's just four little grandchildren that can do that. But I wouldn't trade it just like these grandparents wouldn't trade what they, even though that there was they knew Bigfoot was around. I wouldn't trade that around my household for nothing. And everybody's having a joyous morning, and the sister and the mom and the sister-in-law, they all go in the kitchen and they start breakfast. They fix breakfast, and it's right after daylight. It's around 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning when they start breakfast. They eat, and the kids end up falling asleep on the floor and with their toys and all of their fun. And the parents are sitting around talking, drinking coffee or whatever, and they're sitting there kind of discussing, the situation with the snow, hoping that it will snow just enough to cover the ground. And at this point, they go and sit down and they're looking outside, and they're kind of got their fingers crossed and their toes crossed and their ears crossed and their eyes crossed, and they're hoping for snow, just for the grandbabies to see snow. Now, on the elevation that they're at, which is pretty high up, it's not in the Rockies, it's in the Appalachians here in the east. Um, they see a couple of snowflakes start falling about noon. Now the kids are up, and they're starting to. The mom has already had the ham on since about 8 o'clock that morning, and she's got most of the stuff done. And the daughter and the daughter-in-law have been in there helping her, and they've been in there chit chatting, and the dad has snuck in and stole a couple of cookies and brought a couple of cookies out to the grandbabies, and he's kept him some too, and typical thing I would do. And at that point, the dinner gets done about 3 o'clock. Mom and the girls, they've all went up and got showers and got dressed in their Christmas, what they're going to wear for the Christmas dinner. And at that point, they're sitting at the table and they say grace, which is an important part on Christmas Day. And they're all holding hands, and the little kids are sitting at towards grandma's end of the table, and grandpa's sitting at the head, and grandma's sitting at the foot, and the sister and brother are sitting on one side, and the two daughter-in-law and son-in-law are sitting on the other across from their spouse, and all the grandkids are down at the other end of the table. Now this is a 12 place oak, uh, very nice dining table, very very nice. From what I was told, it's immense. Now they're all sitting there and they say grace and they start, getting the stuff for the kids, and then mom gets stuff for dad, and the wives get stuff for their husbands. And they all sit down, and they've done said grace and asked for the blessing of the food. And they're sitting there, and one of the little boy, the only grandson, looks up and goes, "Look, Papa, look out the window," and he points. And the male Bigfoot is standing there with its arm around the female. And they're standing there watching this family having their Christmas dinner, starting their Christmas dinner. And the grandpa and the grandmother stand up, and her first reaction is to grab the grandkids and take them out of there. And the grandson, the one that's 10 years old, looks at grandma and says, "Grandma, we talked to them talked to that lady yesterday when she was out there watching us when you made us come in." We would talk, but she has a funny language. We couldn't understand her, but we would talk to her. And they're kind of looking at each other like, well, they didn't do anything to the kids. And they kind of get the feeling that these Bigfoot are just there watching this family and they were waiting for their apples. Well, the grandpa stands up and looks out the big, huge window right there in the dining room. He looks out and he sees the female standing there with his arm around the big male standing there with the arm around the female, and his wife walks over and he puts his arm around his wife and looks at her and leans over and kisses her. And the big male looks down at his female, and I don't know if he said anything because they couldn't hear, but it looked like he pulled her in closer to him, almost like he was hugging her. And she was had her front faced into his side, and he had his big, huge arm around her. And they kind of smiled. The grandfather and grandmother kind of smiled because they both saw the 2 bushels of apples that were sitting there at their feet. Now, it's snowing at this point. The male squats down, picks up both bushels of apples, and at that point, the female starts walking off into the woods, and the male's got 2 bushels of apples in big sacks thrown across his shoulder, one shoulder. He's got his big arm around him, holding him on his shoulder, and they walk off. Nothing else happened after that. And they stayed there for 3 or 4 days. Nothing else happened. And this Christmas, I hope they have the same Christmas they had last year. And if they interact with the same Bigfoot, I hope it's the same way that it happened last year. It's just 2 Bigfoot expecting something that the parents of the now grandma and grandpa, which are the head of the household, head of the family, were doing before with these Bigfoot. I don't know if the Bigfoot had young because they were never seen, but it goes to show that maybe these creatures are more understanding and understand humans quite a bit. So, I usually have accounts of Bigfoot harming people, but I'm glad to bring you this one on Christmas Eve because it shows that not all of them are bad. They just wanted their Christmas present and they got it. And they didn't cause any trouble except for waking them up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for 4 or 5 days. And it's fun to see that these Bigfoot understood family. I would say they probably had their own. And I hope y'all enjoy it. And with my wife, who's going to come over here. Yeah. Okay, Mama.
Merry Christmas, everyone. We love you. God bless you.
We hope and pray that y'all's Christmas is a joyous one and that you're blessed beyond belief by Almighty God. And to everybody out there, spend time with your family. And remember that they love you no matter what. Your family, your family. You're our family. We hope each and every one of you have a wonderful and blessed Christmas tomorrow. We'll see y'all later. Bye bye now.
Bye.